All right, guys, it's always an honor having our next guest on. You can check out Flow Wrestling's new film about his wrestling style, The Funk. He's made his Funky and FRB show free via Rockfin to help out with the current coronavirus isolation boredness. There's also the Funky Crypto podcast, the Mental Monday videos on Twitter.
Oh my gosh, so much stuff.
Deal with a number of tough issues, Ben. The tough issues. And do I need to mention the fact that you're a former One and Bellator champion, Ben? Funky Askren, welcome back to Submission Radio, man. It does feel like it's been too long, but that's because we like having you on the program.
Absolutely. You guys got it. Yes. I'm in a very, very lucky situation. I feel well, you guys do kind of, I get to, a lot of my work is from home, right? So I can do all my podcasts and everything else from here. We did have to close down the wrestling academies last Friday. I don't know how stuff is there in Australia, but it's pretty tough here. A lot of jobs and work's closing down. Schools are all closed down. But so I'm like I said, I'm lucky enough to be able to do a lot of this stuff from my house.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, how have you been dealing with all this kind of stuff? How's the toilet paper supply in Askren household? Because here in Australia, it's basically a drought of toilet paper countrywide.
For real?
Well, more or less, people are getting into fights in stores. People could use this in funky wrestling.
The toilet paper one. I feel like I'm repeating myself because I've said this in a few other interviews. Like, I don't get the toilet paper one. Like, food should come way before toilet paper. If I had to wipe my butt with a rag and wash the rag and then use it again, I could obviously do that, right? There's a lot of different ways to wipe your butt and make sure that's clean. That doesn't involve toilet paper. I get a bunch of old dirty socks. I don't know. I got a bunch of ways to, right? But I need food. I need food really bad.
Well, Submission Radio really should have been a toilet paper company, and then we'd be in the money. But there you go. We're an MMA. We're an MMA podcast.
You guys closed down also?
Well, no, not really, because we get to do it from home like yourself. So we're lucky with that regard. But a lot of MMA gyms, coaches, everyone out of a job here in Australia. So it's pretty tense. I was going to ask you though, Ben. With this coronavirus, I know you mentioned on the Mental Monday video how, you've been in isolation since last Friday with your family. Do you reckon if you were still active in the UFC and they wanted you to fight during these crazy times, you'd still be interested like a lot of these other fighters are?
That's an interesting question because, I am taking this seriously. That being said, obviously it would be a good opportunity because there's no other sporting events whatsoever. You know what? I think I would suggest that they fly me privately somewhere, right? So I don't have to go on a commercial airliner. So if they wanted me bad enough, they could probably do that.
I wonder, right? Because there's almost like this debate, right? You see shows getting cancelled, shows getting postponed, and you're hearing, but the fighters want to fight. And then the other side is, well, of course they want to fight because if they don't fight, they're not going to get paid. Where do you stand on that whole thing and sort of, people thinking, well, if shows are going to be postponed, the fighters should be compensated at least?
That's dumb.
Which part?
So obviously I think there's a lot of things. I'll run at it from multiple angles. My first thing I thought was that's stupid. Because as a fighter, especially an up-and-coming fighter, you shouldn't be relying on your fight income to feed your family because you never know when you could get hurt, your opponent's going to get hurt, something's going to, right? Cards move all the time. Fighting is very fickle. Everything changes all the time. So especially if you're an up-and-coming, you should not be relying on that paycheck to make a living. That is a really terrible idea. So that being said, I think there's numerous fighter issues which fighters can't figure out how to get a group together to create some type of organization. Say the NBA or the MLB or the NFL, they all have players associations. And I think you could very easily do something where you have full-time health insurance. So the UFC provides insurance in the cage, specifically in the cage, but nothing else, right? Mm-hmm. And so health insurance, some type of retirement plan. There's stuff that we could do as fighters to put I'm not a fighter anymore. I'm retired. So they as fighters could do to put together some type of association that would help them with numerous issues. Maybe this would be one of them. Maybe it wouldn't be. I'm not sure.
What did you think about your friend Tyron Woodley? He was still keen on fighting this weekend, even wanting to accept this Colby Covington fight as a late replacement. What did you make of this whole fiasco around UFC London and Woodley?
I mean, obviously, from his perspective, I mean, he's less than a week away when they cancel all this stuff, right? So it's like he's put in all of this work, and then doesn't get any payoff at the end. So it's got to be highly frustrating for him. And so, yeah, I mean, you've done all that. Why not just go through with the fight, and then hopefully, then right after that, you can quarantine yourself and stay at home or whatever.
Hopefully, sort of riding off into the quarantine sunset with a juicy knockout win. I'm just wondering though, like if either fight would have happened, who do you think would have been the tougher fight for Woodley? Leon, a guy who's obviously very tough and he's been preparing for, or Colby, who's also really tough, but 1 week notice is just crazy.
Yeah, 1 week that's what hit me. 1 week notice is pretty crazy, and especially the fact that he did break his jaw in his last fight. He could not have been training for very long at all for this one. So, yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see, now which direction they go when they come back, because obviously you could put the original fight together like they had Tyron and Leon, or you could very easily make Tyron versus Colby now when they come back.
Which one would you prefer? And which one do you think is the tougher test for Tyron?
Tyron Colby is the one I would prefer by far. I mean, Tyron's wanted to fight him forever. It just fell through a couple times.
It's interesting because here Colby is in this situation where he didn't win the belt. And a lot of fans are kind of not very happy with him after that Usman performance and some of the stuff that he said.
Why are they not? Oh, because he's an idiot. No, I mean, listen, what, you expect the idiot to not say stupid things? Give me a break.
Well, now he's in an interesting spot. Like, if he fought Tyron Woodley, let's say, this weekend and lost, where would that put him in the UFC, in your opinion? I mean, he's lost one. Now, if he loses a few fights in a row, is that sort of game over for him in this UFC run, in your opinion?
Fighting is fickle. Look at, I mean, the one I bring up is, like, Jorge Masvidal was, like, going to that Till fight, had lost 3 of his last 4 or something like that. I mean, they're all the good opponents, but then... he beats Till and then me, and then now he's one of the biggest stars in the UFC, right? I mean, Colby's a couple fights away from a title shot again, and that's how fighting works. That being said, people don't like Colby, and they probably never will because he's a dipshit.
Do you find it interesting, though, right, how, you had this sort of relationship with Dana White in the UFC for years, and people kind of thought, what, if Dana White's going to have something against anyone, it's going to be yourself. But then once you came in the UFC, everybody had a lot of love for you. But with Colby Covington, despite, him sort of being, I would say, a good promoter and obviously working hard to promote
He's
fights.
not a good promoter. He's a very average promoter.
But do you think if he's put himself in an interesting position where he said so much stuff about the UFC where they may not be as keen to give him another title shot? Because if he has the belt, he's sort of got a lot of leverage.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Colby's too stupid to understand how to play his cards. He's an average promoter. He's someone who puts a lot of effort into it, but is not really, really good at it. So there's someone like a Jorge Masvidal or a Nate Diaz. These are great examples of guys who do not put a lot of effort into promotion, but yet they still come out kind of looking good sometimes. And then Colby puts a lot of effort into it, but he's not sharp enough to like say the right things at all the right times. And then number 2, he's also not smart enough to understand the leverage he has or doesn't have with the UFC.
I'm wondering, what is the key to good promotion in your mind? Because you're a guy who did it well, and you've got an eye for these things. If you could pull the curtain back, what's the key to good promotion?
Well, so what? I mean, it's just like Jorge Masvidal. I think he's kind of a dum-dum, but that's kind of besides the point. But sometimes you accidentally fall into saying something like the 3-piece in the soda he said with Leon Edwards, right? Like that just went over. People loved it. But one of the key things, I think Conor is one of the best at this, is reading the crowd and knowing what you have to say next. Like if you think about the time, man, I'm blanking on which fight it was, but it's a post-fight speech. He says, and he's kind of like talking. He says, "I would like to apologize too." And you think about, okay, well, who's he going to apologize to? And he says, absolutely effing no one.
Yeah.
God, he nailed that. Like, I'm not even really a Conor fan, but he freaking nailed it, And so it's like sometimes you have to feel the energy and the emotion in the room and kind of play to it. And that's where Colby really misses, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time as well in the division because you got Masvidal here that he's supposed to fight Usman for the title. What do you think would happen if, for example, a Tyron Woodley did get a fight against a guy like Colby Covington before that fight even happened, and the UFC was unable to put together that title shot? Would Woodley, do you think, be in a position where he could leapfrog Masvidal, or is he just too much of a star at this point to do that?
But you being like, why would they change it up? Why would it go somewhere? You're saying because say if Tyron would have fought someone and fought someone last weekend and then they would have a break. I mean, I feel like Masvidal and Usman is next, and then whoever wins that Tyron Woodley fight will probably get the next title shot after that. If Masvidal were to get hurt, then whoever wins the Tyron fight is probably in there.
It's interesting because the champ Usman, he's tried to do his own, I suppose. I don't want to say it's trash talk.
He's terrible too. He's terrible.
I was going to ask your thoughts. What do you make of this whole who thing? He was like, who is Jorge Masvidal? He was trying not to sort of acknowledge him and pretending like he doesn't know who he is.
Because it's like he's not funny when he says it. So okay, obviously we know it's a lie, right? So, but sometimes you can go ahead and say things that everyone knows it's a lie. But if you say it in a really funny way, people can kind of laugh at it. But he's not funny at all, right? And everyone knows he's lying. That's obvious. The one where I think Usman is like the worst promoter in the history of mixed martial arts, because for me, here's what Colby is literally the most hated promoter, personality, fighter in the UFC, right? And so when Usman's going against him, it's like, okay, you got the bad guy Colby, and then you got Usman, who all he has to do is he's got to play the good guy, and everyone's going to love him and everyone's going to cheer for him, right? But Usman just could not figure out how to make people like him. Like, he just couldn't figure it out. Like, it would be so easy to make Colby the bad guy. He's already the bad guy. He already plays the bad guy. It's so simple. Just play into that, and you're the good guy. You're the face. Everyone loves you. But Usman couldn't figure out how to do it.
I was interested because Conor McGregor was sort of mentioning Usman during the UFC 246 fight week, and the camera even cut to Usman at one point during the post-fight speech, and it didn't look like Usman never acknowledged Conor McGregor or anything like that. Do you think that was a big mistake on his part, not sort of trying to run with it a little bit, possibly for the future?
I think I'm blanking on exactly what he did, but it was probably something.
It was like trying to file his nails when they cut.
Yeah, he was trying to act like he didn't care. Like, okay, like you shut up. I mean, that was absurd. That's what it was. It was totally absurd.
It's interesting.
I mean, he probably knows. At least maybe he's halfway intelligent enough to understand that he's not going to get that fight. I mean, McGregor's not going to fight Usman next because nobody knows who Usman is. He's going to take a bigger fight.
Just with Usman and Masvidal, it's interesting because obviously two guys that you know very well. How do you see that fight playing out, Ben?
I think Usman probably has the advantage in that fight, but I think there's definitely ways that Masvidal could win it for sure.
How would you see him winning it if he was to do it?
Striking. I think he would outstrike Usman, but I also doubt he's going to be able to keep it on his feet.
It's interesting because you got a chance to fight some of the big names in the welterweight division. Obviously, you're one of the reasons why Masvidal is as big as he is, and you had that great interesting matchup with Robbie Lawler. But a lot of people are kind of disappointed because you never actually fought Usman yourself. Is he someone where you're like, oh man, like this is a fight that I could have had? Like, is he one of the guys that you wish you would have fought before you retired?
I blew it. I didn't win. I win the Masvidal fight. I got that. I blew it. You guys trying to rub it in?
Nah, not at all. Not at all. I think we're still not over it. We still wish there was a way that you could fight Usman, or it did happen.
I blew it. I apologize to everybody.
At least the Marty thing is still alive, right? So there's a legacy on Usman there, right? So at least you're not around, but people are referring to him as Marty. Does that make you laugh when it still gets brought up?
That was his name. That wasn't even trying to be mean. That was just his name.
I love how you just apologized to everybody. You did the reverse Conor McGregor. There was no plot twist there. You actually apologized, which you, by the way, you don't owe anybody apology.
Apologize to myself mainly.
Who would you say is and I'm not trying to rub it in, but who would you say is the one guy where you're just like, oh man, that's the guy that I really wanted to fight, before sort of hanging it up?
Well, really, my only purpose in coming, so I was retired the first time. The only purpose I came back was to win the title. And so, what I wanted was the shortest possible path there. And I did a pretty damn good job. I had Robbie. Everyone was pretty well acknowledging if I beat George, I was going to get the title shot. And and I messed it up. So, when I came back, the only purpose I had was to make a run at the title, and that's it.
I thought you were going to say GSP. I thought GSP was
Well, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't deserve it. I lost. Damn it all.
I'll tell you what, man. You say like you didn't do nothing. You're the reason. You're one of the biggest reasons why Jorge Masvidal is the star that he is. So, and you helped build up the division. Let's talk about your concept for this Khabib Tony fight happening possibly in Russia. Break this down for us, because I feel like you are now officially a matchmaker.
Well, I mean, the one thing I said last night, let's not get greedy, Dana. Let's make this really simple. All we need is Tony and Khabib. We don't need an effing undercard. So you need in America. I don't know what they're doing in Australia. In America, they're doing 10 right now, like 10 people minimum. So our maximum. You can't have more than 10 people in a group. So you got Tony, Khabib, 3 judges. But you could also have the judges be remote, so you don't have to actually have them there. You have a referee. You have Dana. You have Bruce Buffer. And you have Joe Rogan, maybe, and maybe hey, look, we don't even give maybe we take the judges, make the judges remote at a remote location, and we give them each 2 coaches or something, or 1 coach. I think there's a way to do it to keep it under 10 people, and broadcast it.
See, I like this. This needs to be a Ben Askren, UFC collaboration. If you had to sort of put money on it, do you think this fight happens? Because gauging the MMA community's sort of feelings, everyone's like, there is just no way this is going to happen.
Yeah, it's just things are changing literally every 24 hours. There's something different. So I think we'll know a lot more, let's say a week from now, like this Sunday night. I bet we'll have a much clearer picture of where it's going to go.
It is a fascinating matchup, a fight that people have been waiting for a long
awesome.
time.
Please,
do you know who wins that one? Do you think Tony could get it done?
I think it's fascinating. That's why it's so exciting.
Well, is that sort of the main thing that you love about it? It's a bit of a pick 'em fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's 2 guys who are really good at what they do, and if you were to design a fighter to beat the other person, that's what you would design them to do. And so I think it's going to be really, really fascinating.
How do you feel like they match up on the ground? Because obviously, Khabib's ground is his bread and butter, but Tony's so willing to fight off his back. How do you see? Do you think Tony can implement his offense off his back against a guy like Khabib?
Yeah, I mean, so Khabib's obviously going to get the takedowns, and he's been so dominant with ground and pound. But at the same time, Tony is so active off his back, and he's good with the elbows, and he's got a lot of tricky stuff. And so I think it's going to be totally fascinating. I'm excited to see what happens.
As someone who understands, obviously, the wrestling and the grappling aspect so well, what if you had to sort of say, like, the key to beating Khabib, if there's one thing that maybe people have overlooked, what would you say it is? And do you think Tony sort of possesses that?
I think Tony's a great fit because Tony's not going to stay put on bottom. Tony can take a lot of damage, which, Khabib will dish it out. Tony doesn't get tired. And then Tony's a high-volume striker. He's not a power puncher. Which I don't think is the right mix to beat Khabib because I think you have to kind of fight him hard, stuff a few takedowns, and volume strike him. And I think that's how you're going to beat him. And that's kind of what he does. That's what Tony does. So I think there's a possibility.
The crazy thing about Tony, like if you follow him on social media, is he's just got such unorthodox training. Did you see recently where he's
even doing? I posted them on last night. What is he even doing? Who knows?
Do you look at that as a fighter and go, this is extremely high risk stuff? Or do you see it and you're like, look, I understand, what he's doing here?
I have no idea what he's doing ever.
Is it safe? Is it safe to say at this point that Tony Ferguson, out of the whole UFC roster, will be the most likely guy to survive this zombie outbreak that we're dealing with right now after all this kind of training?
Yes.
I actually think Tony Ferguson is a part of like an Ocean's 11 type gang, and they're waiting to rob a casino while this whole strip thing shuts down during the virus. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of that. Let me just quickly ask you this, and we'll let you go, Ben, because we do appreciate your time. Conor McGregor, where does he fit in all this for you? I mean, we're talking about the fact that this fight. Yeah, well, what if this fight gets cancelled? Does the UFC just jump to Khabib, Conor McGregor too, or do you think Tony Ferguson keeps this title shot?
God, like people are so interested in the Tony and Khabib thing, despite the star power that Conor would bring. I gotta think they match up Tony and Khabib again. I thought Conor would fight George, but that obviously didn't happen. So, and I'm not really sure why that didn't happen. And usually Conor kind of has an idea what his next target is, but it's been near 2 months since his fight, and we haven't really heard about what his target is going to be. So I find that to be interesting.
I know Ariel's been reporting that, I don't know if it's Conor or the UFC, but someone's targeting potentially Conor versus Justin Gaethje. Do you have much interest in that fight?
Oh, I would watch that. Yeah, I would watch that.
What do you like about that one?
I think it is. I think it's like Conor's going to hit him, but I think Justin Gaethje can take a lot of damage. Is Justin Gaethje going to, wear through the damage and land a bunch of leg kicks and hit him back? What's going to happen there?
Obviously, he did the whole welterweight thing against Cowboy Cerrone as a welterweight yourself. Do you think he has a future in that division, or is that Cowboy Cerrone thing just kind of a return fight for him?
Cerrone's a lightweight. Obviously he's fought at welterweight a few times, but Cerrone is a lightweight. I think he could fight some guys. I think he's going to be disadvantaged against the biggest, strongest guys for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. We appreciate you coming on. I just want to quickly highlight the fact that you and Front Row Brian, have made your podcast on Rockfin free for everybody who's stuck at home. Tell us a little bit about what people can expect.
Rockfin is it's a content aggregator. It was started by my friend Martin Floriani, who started Flow Sports. And just the idea is that all content aggregators such as YouTube or other places, they essentially are able to do whatever they want with the content creators, right? They have the upper hand once they grow. And so this is a new type of platform where content creators such as myself or anybody else can hop on there and put content on there and be adequately rewarded. So most of our stuff goes behind a paywall, but I figure since people will be so bored until the coronavirus is over, we'll just put everything up for free.
I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people have spoken about the podcast, but I didn't have a chance to check it out. There's the cryptocurrency podcast. I feel like people are going to get rich and also get to know who Front Row Brian really is because of this opportunity. Guys, make sure to follow Ben on Twitter and Instagram at Ben Askren, his podcast, Front Row Brian, Funky and FRB, and Funky Crypto Podcast, all up on Rockfin now. And of course, check out his Twitter, where he inspires us on the regular every Monday. Can we get a little sneak peek? What's happening next Monday? What are you going to be talking about now?
Oh, man, I don't come up with my topics that far ahead of time. I've kind of done a few mental Mondays this week. I was talking to a coach about the things I learned. I was going to write a book about a decade ago, and I did a questionnaire of all the NCAA champions the last 50 years, and he was curious as to what the best things I learned from that were, and so we talked about it for a while, and I was thinking about making that a mental Monday. I might just even do that today because everyone's bored and everyone's at home, so why not?
Yeah.
Love it. And of course, you've got the beautiful fire, the beautiful house, and there's some chickens running around in the background, so it's all a pleasant view for all of us. So, Mr. Funky Ben Askren, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.